That would be sure.
All right, good evening, everybody. Go ahead and get the meeting started. My name is Jacob Cosler. I'm a senior planner at City of Westminster, lead planner for the Uplands development. Really quick about the A1 and A5 ODPs. So they are two portions of the large A parcel, which is directly across the street over here with all the dirt moving on it. The PDP and master ODP rezoning, annexation, all those were approved by City Council in December of 2021 and January and February of 2022. So what the process outlined for all developments inside of Parcel A, each section or parcel of it, which is several blocks, its size, they need to apply for an official development plan that will go to City Council for review and consideration. So the process is a pre-application meeting, a concept plan review, first staff review, neighborhood meeting, which is where we're at right now, then additional staff review, and then it'll go to the Planning Commission for a recommendation, and then City Council for review and consideration. The City Council is the deciding body, and it would be up to City Council to decide if this development plan is approved.
What else do you want to add?
And so they have already accomplished that concept plan review. That is a new process the City Council added last year. And so that concept plan review was completed, I believe, in October. Sorry, yes, yeah, October of 2023. And they're here right now. So they've completed their first review with the city staff. So we have had a chance to take a look at all their development plans, and then they'll continue to go back through development review until it's completed, and then go to public hearings. If you got a notice for this meeting in the mail or through email or some other means, you'll get another notice for the public hearings, both of the Planning Commission and City Council. And I'll stick around after the meeting, so if there's any additional questions that come up, please let me know, or if there's a question and answer period, I'll happy to answer any questions for the city. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Jacob. Good evening, folks. I'm going to move over here. I do want to apologize ahead of time. I'm Marcus Pockner. I want to thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have to dim the lights to show the presentation, okay? So just so everybody can see it clearly, we'll obviously come back and be able to answer questions, go back and forth with each other. So just know we're going to have to do that. We do have a recording of this will be available for anybody, so you'll be able to hear our voices, our audio as we look at the different slides. So please know that. So again, thank you to Jacob and the City of Westminster. I'm Marcus Pockner. I'm a consultant with the Uplands team and a consultant at Brookfield Properties on the community outreach on this site. I think many of you, I recognize most of you have been to these meetings. Some neighbors that live immediately north of this site, we really look forward to hearing your feedback on this. And as you heard, we certainly do. As you heard, we presented this in concept plan in October, and so we want to walk through it in a little more detail. So I'm going to go ahead again, and I apologize, we're going to dim the lights. I do, maybe before the lights go out, just so you can see the folks that are here. Kaylee and Brad are with Norris Design. You're going to hear from them in the presentation. And then this is Peter Launer. Peter is with Brookfield Properties. You have not met Peter. He will give a couple of introductions on Brookfield in just a few moments, but so you can see him in light, and then you'll hear his voice here in a moment. So next slide, please. Or first slide. As we go through that, you couldn't see that. We're going to have to dim the lights here. I'm afraid. So folks, there's the team there. You met some of us just a few moments ago. So Brad and Kaylee with Norris, our larger team. I do want to be sure and note that our engineers and our architects for both the for the homes, the attached homes, the detached, and the townhomes are here. So we have representatives from both the different architecture groups if you have questions about that, and then the engineers as well. Next slide. So we'll fix that. I'm going to turn this to Peter again and allow him to give a little background on Brookfield Properties, the developer of A1 and A5. We were talking about both of those today, but I thought it'd be great for Peter just to give a little background on himself and the company and some of the other sites that they're developing in the metro area.
Thanks, Marcus. Good evening. My name is Peter Launer, and I'm president of Brookfield here in Colorado, our land and housing group. Brookfield is you may have heard of Brookfield as BAM, Brookfield Asset Management, which is a large publicly held company that develops office buildings, shopping centers, industrial, number of different product types. Our group is called Brookfield Properties Development, and we're the home building arm of Brookfield. And so we're a private company within the public company of Brookfield. And we really focus on Colorado on providing housing in an array of different product types. We've been in a number of different communities. We're in Central Park, where we were the original developers that Forest City was, but we acquired Forest City and got involved in Central Park. We've built a number of product types out in Central Park. We've been down in Castle Pines in Douglas County. We've got a large master plan community out in Firestone called Barefoot Lakes. We're out in Brighton with Brighton Crossing. And close to this project is Midtown, which is a community that we developed with an array of product types. The one thing I'd say about Brookfield is that we don't have a standard plan that we put on every single property. We look at the property, we look at the constraints of the property, we understand the market, the community, and what is the required product for that area, and then develop the product for that site. So what you see at Midtown was one concept that'll be completely, but something at Uplands will be completely different than what was done at Midtown or at Firestone or out in Central Park. So we'd like to really make sure that we understand the site and develop products specific for the site. So we're really looking forward to being involved in this project and developing housing. And Marcus, I'll turn it back over to you and I'm available to answer any questions.
That's great. And Peter and his team are here, so we're certainly going to ask them questions, any follow-up. I don't think many of you have met them before. We're really excited to have them as partners and developers on this site. A terrific builder here in the metro area. Of course, Central Park, everybody knows Central Park, that used to be formerly named Stapleton. So just to put a reference point on where that is at. Next slide, please. The overview, the agenda that we're going to do, we just kind of met the team. We're going to give an overall Uplands update, which we've been asked to do and will continue to do. Just kind of an overall snapshot of what's happening around the site as we look to the west here. Then we'll transition specifically to planning area A1 and A5. I do want to note, and Jacob said it early on, they are separate applications, right? So we'll kind of have separate presentations to go through them. Yes, they are side by side here, 86 to 88, kind of looking at that area generally, but they are separate applications. They get filed, they have separate votes. So we'll do separate presentations on that as well. Next slide. So this is a little bit of just the overall snapshot. You all know this is Parcel A in Uplands, again, looking here to the west. We are across the street here, right at Crown Point Academy. Thank you, Crown Point Academy, very much for hosting us tonight. So right in 86, you see the overall site, A1 and A5. We will certainly note that on A1, there's an 11-acre PLD, public land dedication, on the west side, right, that far west side, but that's still in A1. So I just want to be very clear, that's in A1. We'll talk about that and show the maps. But A1 and A5, the most northern piece of this that abuts to 88. Next slide. Overall Uplands update, kind of a snapshot on some of the activities that are happening. I know you all are seeing the overlap grading and some of the things that are happening. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. What we are trying to do in these, and it was at the suggestion of City Council and the mayor, said that they had requested that we do actual quarterly meetings on the infrastructure. So what's happening around the site. Not the individual neighborhoods like A1 and A5, which is a particular developer here, Brookfield, but they thought it was prudent that we show what is happening and the schedules and the progress. So we have our next quarterly presentation on February 22nd. It's actually here at Crown Point in the gym that is posted on the city. They carry it as well. And we have city staff there and our team there to answer any questions and give updates. So we are focused tonight on A1 and A5. I want to be clear, that's the team we have here. We want to go through it. We always try to provide just kind of a snapshot so you know where it fits into the general picture. So again, please join us February 22nd. That is set throughout the year. It's that Thursday in the second month of the quarter, and that we'll have those throughout the next year or this year here. Next slide. This shows some of that progress that is happening, the improvements, as we call them, that are happening around this site. This is an important denotation of the types of elements that are changing as you drive around the site. I think I know where most of you live in relationship to this, but understanding Lowell on the west side of the map, 88th Federal and 84th, really on the kind of the major A site. You see red, the sanitary sewer improvements along Shaw that are happening there. The blue really shows the water improvements and upgrades that are happening site-wide inside the site, right? That are happening, the infrastructure, the grading that's occurring now. I also want to just take a moment and show this blue outline. Yes, that's about the water lines that are coming in, but it also shows kind of the outline of the major streets that are in Uplands. And I point that out because you see Irving is kind of the north-south, the mid-north-south point. It sets a lot of that. So some of you that are neighbors, maybe in Shaw Heights to the north, thinking about how our grid or how our streets connect to 88, this is the original planning area. So again, we'll talk about A1 and A5, but this shows kind of the larger infrastructure of the site. Next slide, please. This is a slide that continues to update. Every time we have a meeting, we show the different processes. It is frankly a challenge, right, to keep everybody to understand. We have had two separate processes. Since we started, the city has adopted a concept review plan. We referenced this earlier. This site went through a concept review. We went to city council to get their feedback, non-binding feedback, and then we go through that. So you can see B1 and A2, they have the site plans on, the ones that have the show the homes. Those are two sites that are approved, right? You see in the dark orange, A4 and the C sites over here where we're at, those are in the previous city review process. They're going through that process now. They didn't have a concept review. The purple is the A1 and A5, and here in A7, those are in the city review process. Jacob described that. We have a required neighborhood meeting. We went to concept, we made our first submittal, now required neighborhood meeting, and then we will make subsequent submittals. And then finally, neighborhoods just beginning that new process. This lighter orange, the A3 and the D4. So all of them going through, just trying to track the difference of all of that. Next slide. This is something that we will show, I think, at every presentation because you all as neighbors deserve this. Frankly, many of you in this room worked really hard to bring this great open space in. On A1, that 11 acres in that corner, we think it's very important. We call it kind of a civic axis that is there, of course, by Flynn and Shaw Heights Middle School. That 11-acre site there, the park making that connection there to 88 and Lowell. This will not change. It's just over 40 acres as you see. That's the combination of PLD, public land, and view corridor. Importantly, again, on this site, 11 plus are right at 11 acres in the northwest corner will be dedicated to the city. The city will plan that process, right? They will go through planning that park. So you'll just see green space on our plans today. The city will have a separate process.
The only reason you have that is because it's contaminated soil.
Next slide. We'll be happy to answer any questions about that as well, Karen. I'm going to transition here, I think, is that right, on parcel P1 or A1, excuse me, and talk about this. We can go to the next slide. I think Kaylee with Norris Design is going to talk a little bit and again differentiate that northwest corner there in the park.
Good evening, Ms. Marcus. So we are going to focus on A1 as Marcus mentioned first. So A1 is the whole parcel, both the green and the orange on the screen. As Marcus mentioned, the PLD is 11 acres, and we're here tonight to talk about what's in orange, which is roughly 8.73 acres, and we are proposing 78 homes within this area. The site is bounded by PLD to the west, and then Irving on the right, and then 88 and 87 on the south. Next slide, please. So as Marcus alluded to, he went through a little bit of the timeline here. So we went through our comp plan amendment, PDP and MODP, which allowed this use to go through on A1, and in which case we came through with a pre-application in August of last year, and then had a concept review meeting in October and submitted for a site-specific official development plan shortly after that meeting. And then now we've received our first round of comments back, and we're here tonight to talk to you guys all about the project. And then we will continue on with our site-specific submittals and work towards addressing all comments so that we can get to planning commission and city council. hopefully later this summer. Next slide. So as a requirement, we are required to provide a public notice. We sent this within 1,000 foot buffer of planning area A1. You can see that dash outlined there on the screen, and that went out to 1,690 people. Next slide.
I think I'll just add a little context. This is something we call our compliance matrix. Again, when we went to concept review, council specifically asked that what does the existing PDP and MODP, master ODP, say about this site, these two parcels, and then what are you proposing? So this gives you a comparison of what's in the underlying document, what our requirement is, and then what we're building. So you see we're actually building a little less density than is allowed on this site. We're at 3.5 dwelling units per acre. That's over on this column. We're having additional private parks, publicly accessible private parks. So not the 11 acres, not the PLD, but interior to the site. And then we are matching the perimeter setbacks, those setbacks from the roadways, and they're talking about that. We're matching those, and then of course in the two different building forms. So this is our compliance sheet. Are we following what was in the PDP so we could build the site? Next
Marcus,
slide.
just clarification
Sure.
on getting to that 3.5 DU,
Sure.
that's, you're using the calculation inclusive of the PLD, correct, in order to lower that density rate?
That's a Karen, thank you very much. I'll be happy to come back and answer that. They're probably looking at that calculation, but your question is a fair one. The question is being asked, how do you calculate that right across? Do you include the 11 acres of the PLD? Okay, so I'll come back and answer that at the end with an image. Next slide. I think this, again, we're going to transition back to the team to talk a little bit about that. So again, the 11 acres here of the PLD, and then this site in particular, and we'll have the team kind of walk through the site plan.
Thanks, Marcus. Brad Haig, North Design. Just jumping into this a little more in depth. We've talked about 11 acres that's buffering to the west. We've got Knox Court along that edge as a transition from housing to that PLD. We mentioned 88 to the north, 86 to the south, and then Irving will separate A1 and A5. Some important things to note here. We've got 78 homes in A1. There's 3 different product types that comprise that. 3-story single-family detached homes, 2-story detached homes, and townhomes.
Just want to be sure you all are seeing this. I don't know if you're seeing this key down here. Dark, kind of the yellow is the 3-story, right? So you can see it here on the east, this lower portion. The lighter yellow, right, Brad, is the 2-story up on 88. And then the brown are the townhomes like facing the park there. So if you're not seeing this key, I just want to explain the product line.
This is part of the focus one, you can see it.
Great, well, we'll be happy to, we're trying to adjust that. I apologize that that's kind of the room we're in. So go ahead.
And we work closely trying to integrate with transitioning to the Shaw Heights neighborhood to the north, where accesses make the most sense. We've worked with the city for many years trying to get that right. And both these have the appropriate amount of private parking. You can see Central will have a few more slides that talk to this Central Park area, the private park amenities. Next slide. This slide focuses on the circulation. Uplands, one of our key tenets is connectivity. You can see here all the connectivity to and through both the existing neighborhoods that are there and our neighborhoods. Connectivity is an important piece of what we are doing.
The yellow on the dashed yellow lines, that's the accessible routes, the primary accessible surrounding the site. So you see all of that, as Brad said, the connectivity. The blue, that's secondary access, so almost more internal access, just so everybody's seeing that. And then you see the crosswalk location. The crosswalk has the arrows here as it comes through where those crosswalks as they adjoin the street. So just reading you the legend so you can see it on the map. By the way, we'll come back to this. If you have specific questions, we can go to that. Go ahead, sorry.
Next slide.
All right, now we're going to talk about setbacks that we're providing on A1. We meet all setback requirements. In most cases, we actually are exceeding those. We're providing a 30-foot setback along 88, a 36-foot setback along Irving, and 15 along 87.
So I know, just pointing out neighbors that I know live just to the north of this site. So again, on our frontage, if you will, of A1, you see the 18 feet minimum building setback. We are proposing, as Kaylee said, a 30-foot building setback, right? So showing that, so we are meeting as provided in the PDP, all of those, and in many cases exceeding the required setbacks.
You guys made up the PDP, so it's not like you're really following anything.
Right, so just so nobody can hear when we make comments, so if people, they're recorded showing. I'll be happy to address that though. The question or the assumption is, we wrote the PDP. That is correct. You make an application for a PDP. It was gone through with all the review agencies and ultimately approved by the Planning Commission and City Council. So that becomes our underlying document. It is in fact, as was pointed out by the question, is that becomes the guideline of are we meeting that? So of course you start with the comprehensive plan, then you go from there. We stack the PDP upon it, and then we're meeting that. Yes, it becomes the guideline. That is correct. That's how any development goes through the process, is you make that submittal.
Some
Next slide,
developments go through the process of meeting
Yeah,
the guidelines that the city set up.
if there
You
was
guys
something,
did not do that. You
Karen,
made up
just
your own stuff,
so
and
we,
now sometimes you meet the guideline, and sometimes you don't.
right.
And when you do meet it, you act like you did something great.
So Karen, we'll come back. I think just so people can hear the question and hear you, right? So the lights are on. I just want to be sure they can understand that question. I'll be happy to go through it. Next slide, please.
On the screen now is our parking plan. We are providing parking through a combination of off-street parking spaces through garage, 2 garage spaces, and the rest will be provided via parallel parking. Just throughout the site.
So if we can just talk about, if you can kind of show here, show the colors, and Kaylee, if you'll walk through, just because everybody understanding the key and the way it's on the bookshelf there. So I'm going to show the orange, and that's called enclosed or garage. We all understand that, but the orange boxes, right, Kaylee, all attached, they're garages, they're enclosed, those spaces, and you can see the numbers inside of that, which are 2, which denote 2 parking spaces in all of the garages, right? The guest surface parking, maybe in the blue, Kaylee, just, we can see the blue marks here, and that's following the code, providing guest parking throughout the neighborhood, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and then purple, that's guest parallel. I think that's purple. The color of my sweater, my apologies, I wasn't trying to match it. On the internal streets, right? So that shows that site there. That's how we do that, as is accustomed in the Uplands neighborhoods. The last one is kind of that public street, so guest parallel parking on perimeter streets, that being 88. So that teal color, if you will, that's up at the top. Kaylee, that shows just on 88, right? Nowhere else on the
Yep,
site.
just under the-
Okay.
And so that will be from Lowell to Federal all the way.
Yeah, and I'm gonna probably defer to the city portion of that on the park question, okay? So I think that's fair. I can answer, Kaylee, we can probably answer on our section, if you will, from 88 here. That will certainly be there, and let's come back and let the city answer that on the PLP side, okay? Next slide.
So I get to handle some of the illustrative graphics. In Uplands, we've themed our parks and our private parks after elements that are from the home. So this one is the courtyard. You can see a active turf area, some walls, seat walls around the edge to define that. A great seating element in the middle, great shade structure in the middle, really to bring community together. We've got multiple seating options. We've got like picnic table style benches. We've got umbrella tables. We've got benches. And we also really excited to have some crusher fines and different materials, really looking at some of the stuff. I'll go to the next one on sustainability.
How many square feet?
I'm gonna have to circle back on the exact square feet of that. It does meet our 4% public open space, private park open space requirements. I'll give you those exact numbers later. But sustainability has been important to Uplands from the beginning. And using the xeric plant palette, low water use, really trying to minimize turf. We don't have turf in our tree lawns. So we have turf in these pocket parks, really to activate that. And that is the only spot you're gonna see that. We also have some demonstration gardens in here and pollinator gardens in this park.
Terrific. So again, always pointing out publicly accessible. These are open to all of the public-private parks, right? It's the way it's denoted, again, exceeding the requirement in the PDP, but want to be sure and always improve that those are publicly accessible parks. Next slide.
It'll be real grass or asphalt?
That'd be real soft.
Yeah, real quick, okay. We're gonna show a little bit of the architecture. We're almost done here on A1. We want to show a little of the architecture, describe that, then we'll stop for a moment and make the transition to A5.
So we are providing three different product types within plain air PA with three different elevations and styles. So we've got our SFD 2-story, which is what we have here on the screen. And then we'll go through SFD 3-story and then our townhome products. So Brookfield, just so everybody's aware, is very passionate about sustainability and meeting industry standards, as it's deeply ingrained in who they are and how they do business across all product types. So they work very closely and are working very hard with our architecture teams to make sure that we are living by that and providing great product. Next slide, please. As you see here and on the previous slide, we are using simple forms, purposely selected material palettes that reflect the historical agrarian context. Next slide.
Now that you've taken out all the agriculture, you want to reference it.
These are the single-family attached townhome product that we are providing. This here is the Mountain Modern. Next slide, please. This is the Scandinavian. And this next one is the Brownstone Plan, which has a rooftop option on the 3-story deck. And you notice this one is more modern in nature.
So again, we'll have our architects here. If you have questions, architectural questions about it, we're happy to go through, again, the single family or the townhome product.
Could you just say how tall this
Sure.
is? This
Actually,
looks
I
like
think
4
Karen, on the next slide, it goes through, probably they can delineate on the different plans, but going through, it's one after this, Karen, so I'll get to it right after this. Next slide, please. This shows kind of the question here about the PUD and the TMUND intent, right? So looking at that underlying guidance, we show that this was the intention going through that. The reason we work to meet these standards is to have that, but also to have flexibility, to bring in standards like sustainability, to have actually a much more attainable product, to find ways to do that. So this is from the language where it is said, it is intended to reflect maximum design freedom and encourage innovation and innovative development. We believe this is meeting this. We are adjusting these home forms, the landscaping, the kind of the palette to make sure that we're addressing these. This is the rationale then, as was acquired. There are certainly times, next slide, where we are going to ask for exceptions. On every Uplands neighborhood, we have asked for exceptions, and it will continue to happen
That's for sure.
because
And you
it
guys made this
Karen,
PDP.
Karen, I need you to, so the reason for that is because these are refinements in each individual
not.
neighborhood.
There are exceptions.
Karen, if you can, I promise, I will give you all the time, but if we could be respectful so we can finish the presentation and then go to question and answer. This goes through the exceptions that we are going to. We're happy to address any of them. These are very common forms. And this shows, Karen, sorry, the single family height allowance here. The max height is 40 feet across this site. I will have the architects talk about the height on the different height plans, okay, or the different floor plans. So that's the max height. We also talk about the roof slope, which is an old provision. We're actually improving that, a much more modern setting. And then also talking about, instead of, for instance, major entrances that were old signage, that's an old form, we're doing more landscaping, sustainable environments to really help and support this. So these are the exceptions that we are asking for, and we detail them greatly in our presentation. Next slide. This shows a couple of just clarifications, again, of those. Lot depth, for instance. Traditionally, we had much larger lots, right? An 80-foot depth or a 90-foot. We are asking for 69 and 63. Frankly, we pay for the lots, right? The square footage. So we are building smaller lots. This is a good thing. This leads to more sustainable, more attainable product. Rear setback is reduced because we have different ways we load this. Alley loaded instead of some of the more traditional front loaded. Side setbacks here, 5 foot and 10 foot. So this shows the changes, the exceptions that we will ask for and get feedback. Feel free tonight to comment on any of these if you don't like that exception or you'd like to see a change. Next slide. This, I'm gonna just stop here for a second. We're gonna go ahead and transition to A5. We are writing down the 3 or 4 questions we've gotten, but I just wanna try to be diligent here and work through the A5 presentation, then come back and go through it. So we're tracking the acreage, the calculations on the density. This is the transition to A5. You all understand this is really on the hard corner here at Lowell and 88. All across that site, this is A5. Next slide. This, Kaylee can walk through same process, right? But understanding that, go ahead and Kaylee and walk through kind of our anticipated schedule.
So, very similar dates as A1. They track similarly in our submittal timeframes. So we did the same thing. We went to concept review meeting in October of 2023 and had our site-specific development plan for A5 in October. We've received our first round of comments and are here tonight to discuss this project with you and are working towards our second submittal and going to submit that for your February. And we hope to be in front of planning commission, city council in summer this year. Next slide. As mentioned, similarly in the A1 presentation, this mailer went out to 1,690 homes within 1,000 feet of our site. Next slide, please.
This shows again that compliance doctrine that's there, different density, so I'll answer it the same way here. Again, showing the gross density that's there. Again, increasing the publicly accessible private parks that are there. The setbacks showing how we're matching those. And then 2 are required in building forms, we're providing 3. So we're adding an additional building form going over just the minimum requirement there. You can see again, the overall numbers, this is proposed as 166 homes, a max of 172 is allowed on the site. The city is also, I should have noted this in the first one as well, that top is really about the diversity of product. Single family attached and detached, they had minimums and maximums. We are meeting and staying well within those guidelines as well. Next slide. Let's go through the site plan. Kaylee or Brett?
That's me.
Go for it.
We've already oriented a little bit, but Irving Street to the west, A1 farther to the west. We've got Federal to the east, and 88 and 87 as north and south buffers. Very similarly, trying to work to integrate with the neighborhood adjacent, trying to have the right access points. We've been working on that for many, many years. Both having accessible public open space, AC central to this park, the plan of the park there.
Yellow, darker yellow, 3-story, single family detached. The cream color is the 2-story, and then the brown again is the townhome product. So just seeing the differentiation of the product line and how it fits in the neighborhood.
Next slide. This one again focuses on circulation. We have sidewalks and connections throughout. Really important to Uplands, as mentioned before. I'm not going to say really much else about this. Marcus mentioned the 2 different trail types, walk types, blue being the more secondary access points and yellow being primary.
The only thing is we transition here to setbacks on the next slide. Just drawing your attention to Federal. Here we are tonight looking at the other side of Federal, but that very substantial setback, that was a really important factor that we heard a lot from the neighborhood. You see that setback there, the sidewalks, the mixed-use trail, the multi-use trail, I should say. But that's the setback. Now this next one, I think, kind of shows that in the depth of what that is here on Federal.
Absolutely. So as Marcus mentioned, we'll start with the setback along Federal. We're providing a 71-foot building setback, and we were required to have a 50-foot minimum setback. Along 88, we are providing a 33-foot setback, and we're required to have an 18-foot setback. And then along Irving, we're providing 38-foot setback and required to have a 12. And then 87th, we are providing a 19-foot setback, and we're required to have a 12-foot setback.
Just the simple notation here that Federal, this is the first neighborhood really moving forward on Federal. So that'll set a lot of the depth of the setback and kind of the way we approach Federal on the east, or excuse me, the west side of Federal.
And here on the screen, you can see our parking as mentioned previously. So the two stall garages are in orange and the blue is our internal parallel parking spots. And then we also have our purple as well. And then the teal color up there along 88 that doesn't expand the whole way, just a portion of our side.
And again, that's happening, Kaylee, anticipating the intersections, right? So that really stops that. I'll note Irving being the major street, the connection, of course, Hooker Way makes that, you can see that, but that's the reason we laid out this grid originally to show you kind of the overall larger parcels. Next slide.
As we jump into the graphic, this theme is the back porch. So having another central shelter element, shade structure there with seating. We've got a small play element, open turf lawn. Really great. We've got a grilling station, this one.
And is this picture actually equal to what your schematic is for this little?
Yeah, so fair question, and I'll throw it out there. Is this what we're submitting in our application? Maybe we should say, is that fair? This is the actual proposal, Brad, that we're putting forth in the landscape.
Yes, this is exactly what's shown in our plans.
And it shows the plant palettes, materials, shrubs, materials, all of those things, park structures. Again, because they're publicly accessible private, yes, we have to submit this as part of this, so it does show these details.
And there may be some things that tweak, like the colors of the benches or the colors of the play material, but this is what we've been submitting.
Yes.
But like if you counted the townhouses, it would be
Yes.
3 by 3 or 3 by 4.
So the question specifically, whether it's the townhomes or the landscape or the shrubs, all of that is detailed. The square footage is required, the architecture that goes. So yes, those would be detailed. The number, right, couldn't go, we'd have to go through a change process. So yes, these are as submitted. Next slide.
As mentioned previously, we've got the same mix of product here. We've got our 3 different building types, the 2-story, 3-story, single-family detached, and the townhomes. Next slide. This is the 3-story. Next slide. There's the townhome product. Next slide. Next slide.
Great. I'll go to the next one here. I won't belabor this. Again, the intent of the PUD to have that encourage innovative development. You've seen the forms. Next form. Next slide, please. This is the exceptions again. Just the same things we're repeating. It will happen very commonly in these neighborhoods to bring that smaller lot size. The height, we want to make sure the roof slip, all of those things will be the same in these neighborhoods. Next slide. This shows again, probably just always want to go back through that depth, the setbacks, right? And really making a chart so people can understand what that is. A lot of this is internal to the neighborhood. You've seen something, we've expanded the buffer, those outside perimeter setbacks, and then where we do ask for an exception, it's on the internal neighborhood. We think that's the right way to engage the neighborhood and perimeter around the site. Next slide. I think you all have been incredibly diligent. I know you have been. I'm gonna just turn the lights back on for a second, all right? And if we need to, we can go back. Thank you, Jasper. We'll come back. Wow, that's right. And we can go back to a few slides, okay? So we'll probably have to do a little bit of a interpretation and go back to a few slides. If you want, I'm gonna go ahead and try to remember a couple of the questions, and if I miss it, please somebody ask. Brad, you maybe have one of them. Go right ahead.
The private park question, 4% is required on A1, we have 5.8%, and on A5, we have 4.2%.
How many square feet?
Square foot or acreage?
That means nothing to the average person.
So
But
those
I asked the question, how many
square
square feet?
feet, so those pocket parks are about a half acre, which is about 23,000.
That's a fair comment. It was about a half the size of a soccer field. It's a half of acre. So that's what those are. Again, internal pocket parks adjacent to an 11-acre park that's on the west of that.
These are all internal and controlled by the HOA, am I correct there?
They are,
Who will be doing the maintenance? Will it be the HOA? And if so, what's to stop them from disallowing public there?
Sure.
That can happen.
yeah, it's actually great. And I think we can say specifically, because we've heard that comment, that we worked really hard. One, yes, they're maintained by the HOA. So that's, the maintenance is what you want to see there. They're fully. And then as is a note in all of the submittals, they are forever open to the public. Because of that very comment, John, that's the way we go through that. So that's actually denoted, so they stay open through that process.
Can I
Yes,
add to that,
James,
Marcus?
please.
So what makes them stay publicly accessible is a public access easement on the plat, which guarantees that the city holds the easement to that property, and we can require access to it anytime, and we can prohibit them from putting in fences and gates and those items.
So public access easement allows public access through. Yes, sir.
Are you
had a
gonna
question?
have any like slides or swing sets or anything like that? Like,
Yep.
you know, because we don't have any around here.
Right.
And the school doesn't count.
Right, so, and I don't want to differentiate, I want to just talk about that because we talked about an A5, a small play area. I'll let Brad answer that for a moment. I also want to say, it's hard when we show the 11-acre PLD on the west side of that park. I don't know what that becomes. You don't know that yet. The city will plan that. There may be some there, there may not be. That's to be determined. But on our site, what kind of play features?
Aren't you guys responsible?
No, we
for that?
make the public land dedication, literally make the land dedication, then the city is responsible for the planning.
So the city could basically just leave it and just for another 20 years.
I'll let the city, is that okay? I'll let the city. Go ahead. Is that okay, Jacob?
But the reality is that particular corner has contaminated soil, and I'm guessing that is why you
And why
guys.
is it right
So we'll
next
go
to the
through that
wall?
without just making it seem
Like
like.
the busy corner.
Yeah, so the city specifically wanted that park location because of its proximity to the schools. We're aware of the contamination from the previous gas station. City staff are not concerned about it. We've received guidance from CDPHE about it. On the park design and park planning, the city did not want the developer to leave the process because we think it's not in the public's interest of the developer or the one to lead the design of the public parks. There are 34 acres of them. So the city will take that lead. Right now, we have not started that process because we're waiting on them to pay the public land dedication fee, the cash portion of the public land dedication. And that's the money that we're going to use to start our park planning process. So that's about $5.5 million they'll be giving to us, well, required to give to us.
And that doesn't happen until they do the plotting, correct?
Yeah, and that doesn't happen until they do the plat, which is dependent upon the clomer. So there are a couple other things there. But the city typically will, when we do parks, what we'll often do, the one that we're looking at on the corner of 88th and Lowell, ball fields is one of, or maybe not baseball fields, but like soccer ball fields is one thing we're looking at. There's huge demand for that. With that being an 11-acre park, I think it's very likely that we'll also build some sort of playground structure in there. What will happen for the park planning process is it'll be very much like any other one we do. So we'll hold neighborhood meetings for that. We'll probably have design charrettes that are interactive. And so there'll be a component for the neighborhood outreach to get people to come help design it with the city so we can go do that. I don't know the timing of any of those parks, and being that it's 34 acres, not all of that will be parkland. Some of it will be open space and will be left in kind of a more natural state and will not be actively used.
So that's terrific. I'm going to come back to something. Just you add maybe what we have specifically as play features in the publicly accessible private parks.
So we've looked at the overall uplands and tried to spread our amenities out throughout, so we're not putting playgrounds next to a future 11-acre park that might have a playground. So our amenities are very different in each parcel intentionally. We do not have a slide in A5. We have play features, climbing features, rope features, but not a slide, so.
Terrific. Comments been made a couple times about that being contaminated ground. I just want to be very clear. That site, the 11-acre, that's gone through a full process. It's regulated by CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. They have gone through that. They've analyzed all that, and they came back with an NFA, no further action. So it is not, that's the site. It allows us to move forward. I just want to set that.
Yes.
Am I going to go through? That is the fact. I just want to be sure when we say that, that is
provided
gone.
the ground is not touched. No further action.
That is not correct, sir. It's only, they're not buildings built on top. So we'll let it go at that, but that's the process. But regardless, and John, thank you for regardless, it will continue to go through the state process and be regulated by them, not by us. We go through that process. Sir, did you have a question? Yeah.
Well, I was just curious about the easements. Who's getting the tax deduction from that? Is it the HOA or the builders or?
So there's no tax deduction for it. It's not like a conservation easement.
Fair point. That would a conservation. This is just a public access. So no benefit. Yes, John?
I have a question about the parking then.
Sure.
On both parcels, you're showing garages attached
Yes, sir.
with 2 parking spots. And no additional parking, no driveway parking. Let's be realistic. The majority of the properties in this area have 3, 4 cars because of multifamilies living there, kids living there. What are these people supposed to do with only 2 parking spots? I mean, without having to park your car 3 blocks away.
Sure. Go ahead. Yep.
So our product that we're providing is more urban in nature. We work really hard for all of Uplands for that opportunity, so we have driveways to park our extra 2 spaces. So those are via parallel parking spaces along internal right of way. We meet all the parking minimums required, so those 2 spots are in adequate locations that are in close proximity to homes, so that the numbers where they're located are close to the homes, so that way they don't have to walk very far.
So Joan, we've exceeded that, but we understand.
Your statement, because the properties up on B do have driveways in addition to parking. You said all of Uplands, that's
A, all of A.
Yeah.
Gotta be careful what you
Different code.
Different code, right?
Yeah, different code that applies to those gray, different changes like that, and different products. So that's why we have different exceptions or unique exceptions to each one. Yes, sir.
Since the Shaw, this is tangential, it's not really
Sure.
top of the property, but I live on Shaw, and since that, it got closed, are there plans to put in turn lanes on Lowell, or where it meets 84th? It gets backed up all the time.
Yeah. So I'm going to defer, or maybe Ryan, is that okay? So Ryan, if you can come back up here, and then, sir, if you don't mind, we're just repeating that.
Sure.
Come back through and we can go through it. Again, I know we're transitioning on this question. I'm going to try to be careful to keep it back to A1 and A5. No problem. Go right ahead. Yeah.
On Lowell, it gets backed up 10, 20 cars, where it meets 84th, because there used to be Shaw that would,
Shaw,
hate it.
yeah.
Obviously, it's the land that needs to be, was a weird road anyway. Can left turn lanes be put in at that intersection, kind of like they are at, I think,
So the overall infrastructure improvements at that intersection, all 4 lanes will have left turn lanes.
Awesome. That is what I wanted to hear.
You are absolutely, and everybody knows we're driving south on Lowell, turning right on 84th. That was the question. All 4 legs will have a left-hand turn lane. Okay, just to make that clear. And that happens by going into the Uplands parcels, not changing the perimeter streets of them.
How are you
Yes,
gonna do that on the west side of Lowell off of 84th? That's defined with curves.
Yeah, so it'll be a restriping exercise.
There's not room for it, there's not lanes there.
Sure there, yeah, there is
You work for the city?
no, but we've gone through the process.
They're approved, that's going through, that's part of the submittal, and they will be in.
Is there a timeline on when those go in? Is that within the year?
So general timeline, folks, about the left hand, Ryan, is that probably unique about each one, or what's the general timeline?
So all those plans are at the finish line for approval. As I understand it, the Lowell, and that specific intersection, that's high priority for Uplands and the city.
Yeah, we concur with you, we see it all the
I
time.
hopped the curve today to get around another car.
Understood.
So people are being aggressive at that intersection.
I think we saw that. By the way, that's that overall map that we showed where we're showing the roadway improvements, not part of this submittal or any of the neighborhoods, separate approval process that's going on. I know you know that, but just saying. Yes, Karen?
There's a situation going on that, this whole site is partly in the floodplain, but was never delineated in the ODP. The ODP was approved without ever showing the floodplain or the mitigating land use that would be required to deal with the floodplain within that area. And now people are getting letters showing map revision in the floodplain for their homes that puts them into the floodplain in some instances when they weren't. And that is a harmful situation for people. And the reality is when you adjust the landform upstream from a downstream property, the person who does the alteration is responsible, is liable for the damage that is being incurred downstream. And I don't know what the hell that grading is all about out there. You know, hills and valleys and hills and valleys, you know, and it's, I mean, I don't even know how it's allowed before you even have a grading permit. But, overlap grading, blah, 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 you know, exception this, exception that. The reality is, that's gonna take a large, detention basin or something, which has not been shown on the ODP. And all that, especially on parcel B, all that drainage is gonna go downhill, and Vardy and the city are gonna be responsible for the drainage liabilities that are going to be created by all this hard surface crap going on.
So we're happy to address that. I just wanna, so it was my fault, right? I opened it up to questions outside of A1 and A5. We're gonna answer this, and then I'm gonna transition back to A1 and A5, okay? We have Brookfield here to go through those two neighborhoods. We have the quarterly meeting with all of the engineers, including
Yeah,
the
you
city.
said this was an
No.
infrastructure meeting,
Yeah.
and
No, I-
that's what this is.
Actually-
This is a question about infrastructure.
Actually, let me just be very clear, Karen. I said this is A1 and A5. We have a quarterly infrastructure meeting that is on February 22nd, and we will talk about all of those, and all the respective engineers and teams will be there. This is about A1 and A5. Regardless,
They're dependent upon the infrastructure of the whole
Trust me.
site.
we're very familiar with the process and how it works. You're not, we understand all of what you're asking. So Ryan will provide a little background and answer your question and the process that we go through.
Okay.
Wait, sure. So with regard to the floodplain,
Mhm.
where we're at right now is we got the first round of approval from FEMA. The letters that were distributed were the required notice letters. And at this point, the city has provided a letter for delivery to FEMA, verifying that those notices have been provided. At which point FEMA will issue the approved flow line.
Can you just cite where the approval letter, I'd like a copy of that.
That's the whole site thing done also.
Pardon me? The whole site? Yeah, so that approval letter, it'll be
It's not on the city's website
Sure.
on there, you track it.
Correct, because it hasn't been formally received from the, are you talking the letter
You
from the
just-
city?
You just
just said
said that FEMA has approved your plan,
FEMA has
stage one,
verbally
right?
approved, right? That's what,
FEMA's verbally approved. You then provide the notice. You provide proof of the notice back to the city. Then the city provides that. That's the steps that we've had.
And the city's gonna be liable as much as Vardy if there's flooding damage downhill.
And we all understand the process that we go through, and this is what we're changing and who that resides. We do go through that.
Uh-huh.
So this is the process it's going through. Karen, you're asking that last final approval. Is that online? I'm gonna turn just, if Jacob, it's okay. When FEMA approved that formal goes through that, will that be online? Will that be a letter that's available?
It should be attached to the engineering record permit. If it's not up there, I can check for it.
Wait, if you
Has
would-
the
if
whole
you would
site
just-
been done?
And you know that the city is liable.
I wouldn't agree with that statement.
Yes, they
It's-
are.
it's in
Yes,
there.
they are.
uh,
Yes, they are.
So the floodplain was delineated in the master ODP for this. It's a very small area, and if you think
Because
about
it
it, we're
was
the top
private
of a ridge
property.
up
It
here.
has
So
all
there's
been
no, and not to mention, there's no permeable area or no impervious area in that. So when there was a floodplain,
Exactly.
it was a
And
very
now it's
tiny
gonna be
square.
completely
They have a
impervious.
plan for a detention pond. It was on the master ODP. They have a giant detention pond. It's like a whole block long, largest detention pond probably in the city. And we are currently reviewing it against those standards. While I do not do the engineering myself, Ryan and his team does, and he's a professional engineer, so we trust his opinion on that, and then our city staff will review it.
So Jacob,
So-
can you just clarify, because,
Yeah.
I mean,
Last
I'm
question,
one of
folks,
the
and we're coming
houses,
back.
I'm one of the houses that just got hit with now being inside and required to have flood insurance, thank you. They made my day and my next door neighbor's day is we've never been in it before, but
About $17,000 a year.
Go on, maybe. I get it.
okay, so right now, your flood plan is in the hands of Mile High Flood District, from what I can tell. And that FEMA is not directly reviewed this yet from their site. Now, maybe nothing is transparent, which we're dealing with bureaucracy and I understand the lack of transparency with government and so forth, but nothing in your website on the city site, and I don't,
It's okay, go ahead.
is showing that FEMA has approved this, or that even your third filing, your phase 3 filing from Uplands A1 Green doesn't even show up. There's a blank page on the E-Tracket. You're under your engineering drawing 22-0014, where it should be phase 3, your phase 3 filing on your water plans.
Yes.
It's a blank page in there. You can't even see. You see your early ones with some.
So I'm not familiar with that, I don't do the engineering permits, I do the planning. kind of
All
stuff.
I'm saying, I would like to see, as with the hydrologist that I've just gotten, would like to see the FEMA materials, if you would provide the numbers, the case number, the references, and the actual letters that have been issued. Because there are a number of people who are now directly impacted by your design.
Completely fair. So I'm gonna do this. Can you just repeat that one more time? Not Karen, just the number that you cited. We're writing it down. I'm gonna transition this and we're gonna address this directly on February 22nd. Go through that, be sure that that's up there. I know that's within the city, but we'll make sure of that, Karen. So if you'll cite that number so we can come
So
back.
your
and go through
engineering
it.
drawing,
Yeah.
ENG 22-0014-0001, 23-0001, and 22-0024 are all your water plans, your floodplain plans. You have a separate one for Shaw Boulevard.
Perfect. Yep.
Okay, so if you would just look at
Responses,
those documents are not loaded or not working, and there's no reference to any kind of FEMA sign off or submission to FEMA.
Again, I just want to state, and then we're transitioning away. We have architects here and other folks. The FEMA processes, we're going through that. There will be a formal letter. We didn't say it was that we had a verbal only. There's not a written document. We're going through that. You have to provide the notice, then we'll have that. Karen, very fair point. It's not there yet. We'll have to talk about that, okay? So I think you had your hand up, or maybe one of you two.
I did, yeah, just to express again, I also live on Shaw, I
Yes.
got the letter, I'm nervous about what could happen with the floodplains.
Yeah.
So I was told last time by engineer, it is fair game because it was a slide just to show all the water improvements are happening.
Yeah.
But just, I know there's 2 drains going in and there's a retention pond.
Yeah.
And so obviously I don't want to pay flood insurance. I was actually just hoping that more drains to be put in along Shaw, like, can that be added to the design?
Yeah, but where does the water go in the long run?
There's a large storm drain.
Yeah, there's a very large storm drain that it goes to.
Instead of just a drain in the
It's
end,
not
can you put
enough
it in
for
the
all
middle
that
of the street or something?
service.
It's all based on the street. Yeah. Brian, anything you want to add to that?
You know, since the streets are gonna get torn up, so I didn't know, how do I
Right.
petition to say, can you put one on
Put
every
more in.
intersection? A drain of some sort.
Right.
With that letter you received, it should have had an exhibit that showed what was the, I guess, the existing floodplain, and then lines indicating what the proposed floodplain is.
Okay. Either I'm missing that page, I just got it, that it was gonna be redone with modern hydrology or whatever the term is. So,
I have an image of that on my phone. I'm happy if you'll stay afterwards to just show that to you and we can walk through. Okay. Hey, folks, we're gonna come back to E1. Yeah, this is HR Green. So this is our engineer on the site, Brian Wilton. He presented at the quarterly meeting. Will present again with us at the February 22nd date. Anyone, any A1, A5, sorry, comments or questions? Paul, you want to add something here on the architecture?
There was a question of building height.
Yes, building height. That was specific. Yes.
The 2-story single-family detached are 27 feet on average. The 3-story detached are 35.
35. Great. Terrific. And do we have a cross check on the townhomes, the height on that?
Yeah, the townhomes are varying from 36 to 37.
So I think you all saw 40-foot maximum, of course, that's the max, right? And then these are the actual plans. That height is part of what is submitted in the actual architecture.
And which way your house is facing, you are all along the major intersections in the city. Is everything facing internal, or do you have things that are actually
Perimeter or like, is that, yeah,
facing other residential, like Lowell Boulevard,
Oh.
which all the houses along Lowell Boulevard face Lowell Boulevard. Are your houses facing Lowell Boulevard, or are there garages, are the garages facing Lowell Boulevard?
So thinking of Lowell, right, and understanding there's that 11-acre park, right? Then talk about the homes, those are looking to the west, is that right, that first row?
Their
There's
alley
the
load
west
is
side.
looking to the west, so there's no driveways, no curb cuts. It'll
So
be
the
access to
park
back.
will not be surrounded by driveway.
Correct, there'll be alley load.
Okay, a very specific comment that came from the concept review, we actually had that more where the park, if you will, kind of, or excuse me, the home was more attached, it was like attached to the park. Concept comments came back and said, we'd actually like to see a road there, so the public can park there, enjoy that as a park, so that's one of the changes that's. Any other A1, A5? We're happy to pull these up and go through those details that are there, okay?
The buildings look great, so no questions on that. Great rail park. I just, please don't put water in my front yard or in my basement. I don't
Yeah.
want flood insurance.
And I completely get it. I'm gonna thank everybody and then we'll go through that. I'll make the very simple comment, and I know you know this, we've talked about it before. There are no drains today, and the ones we're adding, we're talking about adding more. We are greatly improving that condition and we wanna
You're
go
not
forward.
improving
I,
condition.
Karen, I get it allowed, that's just where that is, that's the process we go through, and that's where
Not
capturing that instead of flooding.
Whenever you add
So
pavement,
folks,
asphalt,
Karen, we understand the process very well.
then no matter how many drains you add, you are still adding so much more impervious coverage
True.
that the water just drains down everywhere instead of permeates, which is what is happening on the farm.
Drains down today into drain, so that's the
No, it
process
doesn't.
we're
It
putting.
drains into the
Folks, I'm
farm.
gonna close it here, and John, I'll be happy to stay for any questions you have.
And I think everybody would like to know, from where the dirt's being moved now, all over the farm and the mountains being made.
Sure.
Now, I've requested a topographical map from the city. The first one I got looked like a third grade, drew it on a cocktail napkin. I got a second one, which was a little bit better, but can we get a better understanding what's going on with these mountains?
Sure, absolutely. So we'll show that. I think it's a very fair process. When we're
I
allowed to
understand
grade.
about the overgrading, but all at once now there's a mountain that's been started over on Lowell in front of my property. And if you're building on top of that, that's 20 feet above the street. So now we're gonna put a 30-foot
Okay,
house.
so let's stop there. We're not building on top of that. This is grading that we're putting in all the things we're talking about. Utilities go below grade, detention ponds, that's where that happens.
And that's supposed to be done with a grading permit.
Great. I will show, I'll show it on, you're perfect. I think it's a great question. We'll go through some of those on February 22nd. So folks, thank you all for going through it. If we miss any questions, just grab us, all right? Everybody have a great night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.